Hello, BookTube. As some of you will know, I have been doing a book club of two with Matthew at Mayberry Book Club for a long time now. And we were having a great deal of fun where we turn the title of his channel into a reality and make a little book club where we read something, a different thing every month, and just bounce our own conflicting our own conflicting opinions off it. We've ranged the gamut. And I mentioned in a video yesterday that I am currently letting the side down because the Mayberry Book Club for March is all of the Sherlock Holmes short stories. Matthew has been actually making a video for each separate canonical Arthur Conan Doyle Sherlock Holmes short story. I didn't want to do that and flood my already tedious content with me recapping those things. But I haven't made many videos at all about the subject, and that's not good. That's not how you do a book club. But in addition to talking about Sherlock Holmes in March, which is also the home of March Mystery Madness, we also, around this time, around the 20th or so, we pick the next thing we're going to do for the next month. And all sorts of possibilities came up, and one of them was another graphic novel. We have read a few graphic novels together, and it's been really interesting. And some possibilities came up for graphic novels. And I raised one possibility, but I raised it totally hypothetically. I did not think it was a good idea. I raised it only because among comic book fans, it's a big milestone, largely loved, a big event. But it wouldn't work for a read-along with Matthew, who is a novice when it comes to reading about superheroes, about reading comic books. He's liked or disliked creatively some of the things that we've read, but he didn't spend his life reading the individual floppy issues. So the thing that I suggested just as a lark. I expected that we would move on from that suggestion to far more accessible stuff, like, for instance, I suggested Hellboy. Some of Mike Mignola's collections of Hellboy comics are immensely accessible and wonderful, and I'm sure that we'll be getting to them. But no, Matthew decided to have what he referred to as a hair-tossing diva moment and foot-stompingly insist on the suggestion that I made in jest. I assured him, settle down, sweetheart. There's no way you're going to be able to understand this book. None whatsoever. It is not for the likes of you. And that just made him more incensed. So he insisted. He said, nobody's going to tell me that I can't understand a book. Actually ordered it right away. I think perhaps playing on what he accurately senses as my heritage of Boston Irish Catholic guilt, that if I knew that he'd paid money for it, I would have to do it. So we are in an odd position here. We are in an odd position of me doing an announcement video for a read-along that I'm urging you not to participate in. Because most of you will be in the same position that Matthew is in, which means you will not understand a single word of the thing that we will be reading for April. That thing is this: Avengers Forever. Written by Kurt Busiek with a huge amount of editorial help by Roger Stern and with artwork by Carlos Pacheco. And this is that is the cover of this. This is reprinted all of the time. That's the front cover of this. There's the back cover. I believe that this is the cover of Matthew's edition. And you're looking at this front cover if you're a casual fan of comics, and I know just what you're thinking. Wait a minute, what is Dr. Spectrum doing on that cover with the Avengers, and why doesn't he have a mask on? Yeah, I'm sure that's just what you were thinking. No. The most you were thinking was, I think that's Captain America? Or is that Batman? You will, maybe you recognize the Black Panther. You won't know most of these other characters as well. You shouldn't. This was a 12-issue series that was done. Busiek wanted to do a big event. He wanted to do it with Carlos Pacheco, who is a fantastic comic book artist. They worked out a storyline. The storyline to end all storylines. The ultimate Avengers story. They managed to spool it out over 12 issues, and I loved it. I bought each of these issues as they were coming out, and I thought it was the biggest... what's the matter, baby? What's the matter? Do you want to get down? Is that what you're doing? Do you want to come down here? There you go. Even Frida has abandoned the idea of reading Avengers Forever in April. The only reason that we're doing this is because Matthew had a hair-tossing diva moment and insisted on it. And he ordered the book, so I don't want him to have wasted his money. So we're going to be reading this. This is 12 issues, so I imagine we'll do 3 issues a week in the month of April. It doesn't matter whether you do 3 issues or 30 issues in the month of April. He's not going to understand a single word of this. I'll leave a link to his announcement video below. By far the funniest moment in that announcement video, the moment in his announcement video that most sounded like a fondue-making, beehive hairdo 50s housewife, was when he said, "Well, I've seen all the Avengers movies." Oh my God. Oh my God. And because Misery Loves Company, I don't know quite how it happened. I'm sure that I was at least partly instrumental, but because Misery Loves Company, we are actually roping in Michael K. Vaughan to join us in this absolutely hopeless April read-along. Absolutely hopeless. Now, there are grades of hopelessness, as you will all know if you've been watching Tom at Tom L.A. Books do his tour of Dante's Inferno. You will know there are grades of hopelessness. Let me explain what they are. At the very bottom, the worst kind of hopelessness for our impossible April read-along is Matthew, who has no chance of understanding what's going on in even a single page of this graphic novel. Not one chance of doing that. You can blame Roger Stern for that, but then a higher grade, a slightly better version of hopelessness is Michael K. Vaughan, who admits that when he first read this, when it was first collected into a graphic novel, there was a whole lot that he got a feeling he didn't understand because at the time, readily accessible, extensive reprint culture for Marvel Comics did not yet exist. So if you hadn't been reading the Avengers since issue number 1 and studying them, then there'd be a huge amount of what's going on in these issues that you would not get unless you had access to an extensive amount of reprints. And Michael admits that when he first read this, he didn't have access to a lot of those reprints. He has since had access to those, so this will be slightly less hopeless for him because it will be a referendum on how much he's paid attention to the back issue reading that he's been doing in the last 30 years. And then there's my own level of hopelessness where as far as understanding what's going on here, I am not hopeless at all. I understand every little detail of this book. Not just the references, but also the solely visual callbacks that Pacheco works in 100 times on every page. I know and have studied every one of the issues that are called back, and there are thousands of callbacks in here, thousands of them, thousands of Easter eggs. I know and instantly caught all of them because I was reading the Avengers from issue number 1 and also studying them, plotting them out, especially once the character of Kang the Conqueror is introduced. Kang the Conqueror is a time-traveling villain. He's introduced in an early issue of the Avengers, and that immediately made me think, well, okay, why does he go now? Why does he go to this point to fight the Avengers? Why doesn't he, the stereotypical thing being, strangle them in their cradles, if they're really enemies of his and whatnot? And also, how does that fit in with Doctor Doom's time-traveling platform and with Rama Tut, a name that will come up in our doomed April read-along? All of this. I am not hopeless at all in understanding all of the incredibly detailed references in these issues. That part's not hopeless. The hopeless part for me is in trying to make any of it understandable to any of the rest of you, to anybody at all. I don't know how I can do this. These issues were crafted very consciously as an absolute love letter to obsessive continuity fans of the Avengers. People who've been following and deeply thinking about everything to do with the Avengers right up until the minute when the first issue of Avengers Forever came out. I was one of those readers, and I felt duly honored. That's why I love this collection so much. I love this storyline so much because it feels like the ultimate thank you from Marvel creators to the fans who have been down in the weeds of the liner notes all along. But that also is what makes it utterly incomprehensible to fans who have not been. You might say, as Matthew, I think, does in his video today. You might say, well, that's the author's job. The author's job is to make it comprehensible. I say that on this channel all the time. But that wasn't Kurt Busiek's job when he wrote these issues. He wasn't trying to make it comprehensible to newcomers. He was trying to please the old-comers, the old-timers, the people who've been with the Avengers forever, wondering about Kang the Conqueror. And those of you who only know Avengers connected properties from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, when I say that name, you might be thinking about the ridiculous doofus who has been in, what is it, Loki? The TV show, the Loki TV show. I think Kang the Conqueror has showed up there. I've seen only little bits and pieces on YouTube. He is played by a black man, of course, because that it's 2022. He has to be played by a black man. But more importantly, since he wears a blue helmet anyway, it doesn't matter that much to me. But more importantly, he's played as a slang-talking doofus, because the people, the showrunners who write these things, absolutely do not care about comic books. They think they're ridiculous. So everybody is a slang-talking doofus. All the characters are slang-talking. All of them do that sort of thing. So the Kang the Conqueror that you're seeing in that show, if you watch that show, is a ridiculous travesty, a parody of the character that's the main character in this storyline. Just have to put that out of your mind if that's where you know Kang the Conqueror from. I shudder to think I won't really be watching any fourth stage Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, but I shudder to think at them trying to position this talky, gormless moron as the next big bad. I'm sure they won't, but I shudder to think of it. But anyway, if you know the character from that series, put it out of your mind. It's the real Kang the Conqueror who's in these issues. Not that it's gonna matter. It's not gonna matter. None of it is gonna matter. So this is an announcement video for our next Mayberry Book Club selection, which is Avengers Forever. And if you are listening to me, those of you out there, so I know there are some of you out there who have been reading Marvel Comics as long as I have, or almost as long as I have, as in depth as I have, some of you will be cheering. One or two of you will be cheering. You'll be looking at this saying, yay. If you are one of those people, well, then you might want to watch the April videos that Matthew and Michael and I will make for a kind of car crash morbid curiosity to see what kind of a hash we make of it. But if you're not one of those people, don't do what Matthew did. Don't buy this thing. Maybe borrow it from the library if you're curious to try your hand. But I am telling you, you will not understand any of what's going on. None of it. Okay, so that's my ever-enthusiastic announcement video, true believers, for April. In April, we will be groping our way through one of the most incomprehensible comic book storylines ever concocted by two terrific writers. So join us. It was Matthew's idea. We'll see what we can salvage, but it was Matthew's idea. So I will wrap this up for now. I'll leave a link to Matthew's video, and if Michael has a video up by the time I do this, I'll leave a link to his as well. But watch his channel. He will no doubt announce his extremely ill-advised involvement in this himself, and you'll just see what we do, floundering around, trying to make this comprehensible to each other and to you. I'll see you then. Aren't you excited? Thank you, BookTube.